Hey, welcome back. Or if you happen to be new, my name is Delian. This is the channel where we explore what it means to become the main character of our own lives, which I think we're all here to do. And I think the way we do that is by getting self-acceptance, self-awareness, and moving into self-authorship so that we can actually authentically live the story we want for ourselves, which I think is exciting. And some of my favorite resources to do this is astrology, the enneagram, also style, among other things that will continue to be videos in the future. But today I want to talk about enneagram and style. But before I do, I've realized, having done this, that I always forget to do this. And it does make a big difference when I share that it means a lot if you can like, comment, subscribe to the channel. It's incredible how much of an impact those things make. I never knew. And now, like for all of the YouTube people that I have loved, I make sure that I do all of those things because it is incredible how helpful it is. So if you find this valuable, that would mean the absolute world. And like, I think I'm just a couple away from 100 subscribers. I can't wait to watch this in the future and be like, Delian, 100 subscribers. But it's like all of you, I just am so thankful every time somebody subscribes. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's another one of us. And by the way, I don't know when I'll be brave enough to actually start doing this, but in my mind at least, I call all of the subscribers to this channel starlings. Like, I just think that you're all lovely. And anyway, today the video is going to be about how I read an astrology chart through the lens of doing a style reading. So this is actually how how this channel started, is that my puppy dog got injured and I was stuck on the couch. And for years, I had been a part of this incredible Facebook style group where we helped each other develop our style, understand style systems. And it has been one of the best experiences and most empowering experiences I've had in the online space. These people are incredible. And it happened to be that I was on the couch and therefore on my computer and therefore on this Facebook group. And it came up that people were trying to see if astrology could be used to help them in their personal style. And I had been doing that for years. And so I shared a bit of my way of doing that and then asked just if people would be interested in doing an experiment to see if I could also give people astrological style readings. And now I think it's like close to 50 to 100 readings I've done so far. Turns out it seems to be pretty accurate and pretty helpful and empowering, which is exactly what it was for me. And I am so thankful and excited that it gets to work for other people as well. So if you are interested in getting a style reading, I'll have that in the description down below as well. But I also want to give you some insights into how I do it and see how that works for you. Let me know in the comments. And let's see, is there anything else I want to say? I don't know. This seems pretty good. That seems pretty good. Grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and let's get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of the signs / houses and talk about like what I would... No, that's not what I'm going to do first. I'm going to talk about what I do as soon as I see a chart. And then I will go through all of the houses and signs and what I would assign to each of those areas. This is going to be so exciting. Okay. So when I open up a chart, which is a circle, and what I feel like I see is I see a character in a story, and I get to like essentially digest in this intuitive like format of who this person is as this character and in their life, like their strengths, their flaws, what they're here to learn and grow, what they're already really great at, what some of their wounds are, and also what I see as the main the loudest parts of their energetic blueprint, which I would associate with what would likely be most important in one style. So I open up the chart, I see the chart as if it's the house of you, and all of those pizza pie slices, which in astrology are called houses, I consider them to be rooms in that house. And all of the planets are parts of you. You have a Saturn part of you, you have a Venus part of you, you have a Pluto part of you, right? And if you're interested, I've done some videos already covering how I read each of those things in a chart, so be sure to go check those out. But essentially, depending on where that planet is in this house and what the room is, it all gives it a certain flavor. And this is what creates that energetic blueprint. That's you. All right. The second thing I do is that I look and see where the planets are predominantly in your chart. Are they the top of your chart, the bottom of your chart, to the left or to the right? And depending on where they are, I'm going to get an idea of how your energy flows. So if you have a lot of planets in the top part of your chart, chances are your energy is going to be more outward. It's going to be a pushing energy, more extroverted. And if there's more planets on the bottom, it's going to be more introverted, a bit more self-reflective, a bit more being really aware of your inner world. And if there's a lot towards the left side of your chart, that's going to be more introspective, a little bit more. It can be more extroverted, but it's going to be more self-focused. And then on the right side of your chart, towards your descendant, which is where the 7th house begins, is going to be more about how you relate to other people. It's going to be more about your personal relationships and your personal society. And so that gives me an idea of just how you naturally operate, right? Because some of us are introverted, some of us are extroverted, some of us have a decent blend across our chart. I would say that that's how mine is. I have some in each area, which then causes, I have lots of opposition in my chart, which is really fun. So just lots of tension. And then if I will always read the ascendant. I think the ascendant is the energy you're here to embrace in order to become the most embodied and empowered you, which is great. It's like the universe just gave you this brilliant insight of going here's the path, here's the key, here's your strength training program. And I find that fascinating. I find that really empowering. It makes me feel like I have a lot of agency over my own life, which if you have ever gotten an astrology reading or gotten into astrology and start reading things and they're telling you oh, you're Cancer, so you're just doomed to be moody and sensitive your whole life. No. You're a Cancer. Your proclivity is to be sensitive and to feel everything. And since you know that, you can then start to make sure that your life and your narrative works in a way to use that as a strength versus a weakness or even a weapon. There's lots of things we can do with our energetic blueprint that's in the enneagram world. It's high or low side. That's at least the enneagram world I'm a part of, which I really like, is that they're all just tools. They're all just things that are there. How you use it is your free will. That's the authorship. That's the agency we need to start really embracing. Again, with a lot of self-acceptance and awareness. I'll get off my soapbox. Okay. So with that, I will always read the ascendant. I will look at your moon and your sun. However, if you have 4 or more planets in a certain cluster or area, sometimes that area might outweigh your moon or sun. I will always read your moon and sun in your style charts, but I will probably mention how this other, if I see 4 or more planets in a certain area, I'm like, okay, this person probably doesn't feel like their sun sign. This person doesn't, they're likely going to have more expression of that other area of their chart, because imagine, again, the house of you has 4 parts of you or more in this one room. It's going to be louder. There's more energy. There's more things happening here. It's going to grab more focus. And so if your sun is by itself in another sign or house, it's still important. It's just not going to have as much influence. That's it. That's how I approach that initial, just quick looking at a chart to see how this person operates. All right. So, is there anything else? No, I like that. That's my initial read. And then essentially, if you have a lot of Aries energy, a lot of Aries placements, or your ascendant is in Aries, I'm going to talk about, I wrote it down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things for each sign and house. So the first thing is I'm going to share the homework assignment that I give for each of the signs and houses. I'm going to share what essences or vibes. So again, if you're part of the style group, hello, hi, I'm so glad you're here. Then you know the essences, like from Kitchener, Ellie Jean Royden talks about essences, I think, in a really clear way. Our Fashion Garden, all of those sorts of things. I share what I think the essences might be from each sign or house. I'll talk about style roots that I associate with each of those things. And I'll also talk about colors, although I think there's a lot, like I haven't nailed colors down. So we'll see. We'll see as that continues to go on. I mean, it has been, I would say like 75% of the time I've been pretty accurate with colors, but that's not 100%. And then I'll also talk a bit at the end about what I would look at in a chart if you had questions about your Kibbe body type. So, okay, go ahead and pull up your chart. You can follow along and let's go. Aries, first, the homework assignment. Aries are the first house. The homework assignment is sparks. What just makes you feel alive? Like, what makes you excited to be alive? I would have you write that at the top of a piece of paper and write down everything that you associate with that. Because Aries is about like the breath of life, inspiration, feeling, like, I love thinking about it as like literal little sparkles happening. One of these days I will talk about whole brain living by Jill Bolte Taylor and how I utilize that exercise. So that, and how sparkles has something to do with that. But essentially, anything that's like just grabs your impulses, grabs your interest, makes you go like, ooh, what's that? All of those things, write it down. Because those things are important for you to be able to translate the planets that are there, the parts of you that are there, and how you can bring those into your style. So again, if one of the top 3 in your chart is Aries, this is going to be important for your style. Okay, for essences and vibes, I tend to see ingenue, sometimes dramatic, but certainly if you have a decent amount of Aries energy, you at least have a youthful vibe. I have my ascendant in Aries and my Mars is conjunct it. That's so fun. And I don't have ingenue in my features. However, I do think that I have, and I think that that's because my Saturn that is in the 10th house and in Capricorn is perfectly squaring my Mars. Essentially, it's like, grow up. They've worked out a lot. They've worked things out a lot. But essentially, if you have Aries, I do think that you have a youthful energy, if not ingenue essence in your features. I do think that there's some possibility of dramatic, because again, it's a fire sign. We're going to see some drama, some intensity. But I do think that if you do have dramatic and you have Aries in your chart, you may need to make your dramatic energy somehow just a bit like more fun, possibly. So that's something to just think about and consider. In terms of colors, I do think Aries is like neutral, leaning maybe just a bit warm. So that would be something I have associated with Aries. Again, we're only 75% there. So if you have a lot of Aries in your chart, feel free to leave a comment about like the colors that are most, that maybe that you're neutral, warm, or that you're cool, whatever it is, or that you have certain color eyes. Maybe we'll crack the code together. Okay. And then Is there anything? Oh, style roots. So the style roots, for me, some of the signs slash houses are very obvious to me when I'm reading a chart. And sometimes this is intuitive and I cannot totally pinpoint how. The story of the chart starts to speak to me, but I will say that I do think that there's something about the homework assignment and the answers you get in your homework assignment that will reveal your style root. For Aries, I do think that the likelihood of you having fire goes up. Just because of intensity and also like being in touch with your senses, which is a kind of sensuality, right? I also think that moon could go up there because, again, it's just tough because I think that whatever sparks interest for you, and you'll notice, you'll write down all the things, you'll like things that spark my interest. It could be, oh my gosh, every time I see a field of flowers and every time that I see pastel colors, like, oh my gosh, well, the flower style route probably works for you. So you'll see how that happens. But I do think that the possibility of fire goes up. I think the possibility of stone goes up because Aries wants to be able to move. They need to not feel like restricted. And so those are two that I've noticed for Aries in particular. Going through all of them in my head now. Yeah, and again, because it's a youthful one, I do think that flower shows up. I think that flower shows up as one that's very possible for, well, we'll go through all of them, but definitely the more youthful signs, which makes sense. Okay, let's move on to Taurus, or the second house. This is going to be, we're in an earth sign, so the homework assignment that I give you if you have a lot of Taurus in your chart is going to be what makes you feel like you have enough. So maybe it's the word enough. Maybe it's the word safe. Maybe it's the word cherished or cozy or like protected. And write down all of the things that make you feel that way. Because again, Taurus often gets associated with having enough food in the fridge, having enough food in the pantry, having lots of cozy textiles around you, or being luxurious. I do think that because Taurans really do appreciate / need a sense of abundance in their lives, that they do like, and there's like a showing that they like to have of that. Sometimes. But that's the thing, like there's going to be other things going on in your chart that will determine how you want to show off or not show off the resources you have. Like if you had a ton of, I don't know, Scorpio, you may be like, and Taurus, you may be like, yeah, I have my resources and I know that they're there, but you know, they're for me to know, not for everyone else to know. And so it's like, sometimes, again, like how much you want to show off your resources in your style is going to be different. So there are some Taurans energy where it's like they do want to feel more elevated, but there's a real scale there. Some of them want to go all the way to like wearing velvet and like, I'm going to say faux furs, anything that like speaks to that old money or that like high luxury living. To another form of feeling really well resourced might be, I always use hobbits as an example for Taurus energy. Like it's elevated, but it's like cozy and earthy, and it's like a little, there's a youthfulness too to hobbits that I just think that hobbit energy is the perfect example of Taurus energy. So, what else do I want to say about that? Anything that makes you feel like you have enough. What are those things? Because it could be journals, especially if you got a lot of Gemini in your chart, and it could be books. It could be having literally a certain amount of money in your bank account, whatever it is, and you'll start noticing a theme. It could be certain colors, right? It could be certain fabrics, because again, we're talking about style here. And I think that once you start going through that, you will notice like the version of feeling abundant that resonates for you, and to realize that that's going to be an important element to bring into your style. Okay, in terms of essences and vibes, we're in an earth sign. I think that the possibility for natural goes way up. I also tend to see, again, because we're in a youthful ingenue or gamine, I often see more gamine than ingenue. And it might be because it's just a bit more yang because of the natural element here. But definitely just, I tend to see smaller features, like smaller, more youthful. Like Aries, I think, has like a bit more like intensity that they can have. Taurans are a little bit more like, I'm sweet. sort of features. And then in terms of colors, I'm going to say, I should have said something else about colors for Aries too. Well, hopefully you're watching this whole thing. If you have a lot of Aries, you're also here. I think that we're going to see more natural colors. So like greens, like anything that you would, richer browns, richer natural colors. So like I'm going to say like medium depth, neutral to warm, but like greens, browns, some burgundies, but it's not going to be super red or super bright. It's going to be like that, a bit softer. Whereas Aries, I think, is going to be just a bit more intense in their colors. Whatever their colors are, it's just going to have a little bit more pop to it, which is something I think that that's the case. Like, I think if you have a lot of Aries energy, the likelihood that you can wear like black or something like that, even if your color season doesn't seem to go along with it, like there's something about you that can pull off a bit more intensity. Whereas Taurans, I see softer for sure. I also tend to see a little bit more texture for Taurans or the second house, so that's something too to think about. And then style roots. Earth goes way up, flower goes way up. I also think fire gets a say here, because if your version of feeling abundant is that luxury leaning, that's a thing. And then I think for style roots, going through them in my head, sometimes I think that I see sun style root here, but it's only if that youthful energy for you in that Taurus like leans a little, like again, if your abundance vibes tend towards being like, well, I'm going to show myself as being like playful and bright and almost like peacock type of thing. Like I can see that for some Tauran energy. But I do think that earth and flower go way up if you have a lot of Taurus. Okay. On to Gemini and the third house. So the homework assignment I give to Gemini is like learning, feeling excited about information. What do you want to communicate? What does your mind want to absorb and learn? I also think I think it'd be really fun for Geminis to be like your favorite books would be good to understand and to know, because these are just ways that you can start to you'll start seeing patterns about like what's working for you and what you're drawn to. But it's certainly going to be like learning and information driven. Chances are, if you have a strong Gemini, you are somebody who at least surface level figured out all of the style systems. I'm with ya. Because you love the learning part of something. And so for you, the homework assignment is something like, what excites me to learn about. Like, and I do say this for Geminis. If you have a lot of Gemini in your chart, getting stuck in a system, like a style system, goes way up, because you're not here to get stuck in a system. You need to use the systems to like figure out just enough about yourself so that you can keep exploring. But if you use a system to like trap you, that won't work. So I would say that if you have a Gemini, and in terms of your style, this might be something you do like maybe 4 times a year. Maybe it's quarterly, like when the seasons change. You can be like, what am I learning about now? What's exciting that I'm like really just interested in? And writing all of those things down and letting that be a part of how you present your style. Because maybe 3 months ago you were like super excited about learning about gardening and learning about like how like trees grow. I don't know, I'm making stuff up. And so like you were really heavily influenced by bringing that into your style. And now you're like, but now I'm into, sorry, I'm thinking about bread a lot, sourdough, and like being homey and being like in the kitchen. Like let your style reflect what you're exploring. So that would be the homework I would do if you're a Gemini. I would also really encourage you, if you're a Gemini, to like seriously do some like journaling about how you feel. Because sometimes you might be a little dissociated from your feelings and instead just relying on your thinking. And sometimes it's really hard to be able to figure out what you actually want from your style because you're not really investing in what's going on in here and over investing in what's going on in here. And it's not like you don't want to ignore what excites you in your brain, but you do want to make sure that your heart is in it too, because if it's not, it's probably going to fall a little flat. So especially if you're a Gemini, go check out where your moon is. And if your moon is in Gemini, like just be aware of what you need in order to be in touch with you, what makes you emotional. Okay. In terms of essences and vibes, ingenue still pretty high. I do see Gemini go up here. I also tend to notice, interestingly enough, ethereal shows up just a bit more. Maybe that's because we're in an air sign. Yeah, that is interesting. I am noticing and if you have a lot of Gemini, I do think that the possibility that you have ingenue and ethereal goes up. So let me know if you have Gemini, a lot of Gemini in your chart, if that's the case for you. Because again, I would associate ethereal with a bit more of an air-like quality. And because we're still in the youthful part of the chart, more that ingenue showing up as well. And again, this could be Gemini. But I would say that it's either ingenue and ethereal, or it's Gemini. And I do think that those two essences combinations can get confused with one another. For colors, I definitely see lighter and brighter. And I also think about like lighter fabrics, because it's like Gemini vibes are like, they're just a bit airy, right? You want to like, I often notice like my Gemini friends like are the people who have those like long flowy cardigans or the kimonos kind of thing. Like that's going to be like a really good Gemini kind of aesthetic vibe, I bet. But like I do notice like flowy, light with like some pops of fun and interest. So I do see sun as a style root that shows up. I do see flower here. I don't see a lot of fire. I don't see a lot of moon. And if there's moon, then there's definitely like flower or something. Yeah, that's what I think. Those are the ones that I'm noticing the most. I think sometimes I was going to say mushroom, but no. No, you'd have to have something else in your chart, I think, if you were drawn to mushroom. Okay, yeah. And then, is there anything else I want to say here? I also think that like in a certain aesthetic that if you have a strong Gemini, like being influenced by some like academia type of aesthetics could be fun for you. That just might be like a cool element to bring in. But let me know if you have Gemini as one of your top 3 in your chart, if that resonates. Okay, moving on to Cancer, or the 4th house. So homework assignment, I always say nurturing. I always say what makes you feel emotionally safe. I think that if you want to do nervous system work, go look and see what's going on with your Cancer in 4th house and notice which parts of you might exist there, and like be able to say, okay, this is how I can take care of myself. I've done a video on the moon signs, so definitely go check that out. But I think that the homework, 100% nurturing, what makes you feel nurtured, and write down all of those things, because Cancers really want to feel like their inner world is being taken care of. And sometimes they may outsource that to other people, but I think that one of the great things we can do with style is this is a way that we take care of ourselves every single day. We're getting dressed anyway, might as well get dressed in a way that is bump-a-da-dun, nurturing. So again, so many things might influence what feels nurturing to you, because for you it might be like, you know what, I feel nurtured when I feel like I am a badass action heroine in a movie, like wear my black leather jacket and my jeans and combat boots, right? Like that may feel nurturing for you. That's awesome, which could very well be the case if you have a lot of Aries and Scorpio in your chart. But like, just notice, get real with yourself about what makes you feel safe, and you'll notice a theme. You'll notice, like, write down smells, write down colors, write down people, sounds, all of those sorts of things that really bring you that sense of feeling nurtured, because it will, you'll see a pattern. And if you want help with this sort of thing, this is a lot of the stuff that we talk about in your style, yourself, and your story on Facebook, in the group that I started there, to be able to really like talk about personality and how we can understand ourselves and create the story we want for ourselves with our style. So that is something that I think would be just a really fun way if you want help with the pattern recognition of your list. Could be cool. And yeah, like notice like when you put on an outfit, does it feel nurturing? Is a really easy question, because you can get in touch with your emotions to see if it is or isn't. And if it's not, and Cancer or the 4th house is one of your predominant areas, then that's probably not going to work for your style, which is great, because again, that gives you a lot of awareness, acceptance, and authorship. Anything else I want to say about the homework assignment? Sometimes I say what makes you feel mothered, but sometimes that can be tricky. That's why I like the word nurtured a lot. But if mothering really, like, that's something that like gives you makes you feel nurtured, that word or that concept, and that elicits that feeling, definitely you can use that as well. So essences and vibes. This is when I start seeing romantic show up. If you've got a lot of Cancer, I think that romantic is real likely, because this is a water sign. We're starting to get into some softness. We're starting to getting into like, that round sensual sort of vibes, because that's what water is, right? I do think that fire style root shows up, but really stone shows up a lot here, because I think that most people do associate feeling nurtured with feeling comfortable. That can also translate to some mushroom elements as well, because mushroom is just like laid back, a little bit more simplified, and also elevated. Again, if you have a decent amount of Libra in your chart as well as Cancer, I would say that that mushroom goes way up. So like, for instance, let's just say that Cancer, the 4th house, is definitely one of your top 3, but then you do have like 2 planets over in the 7th house. and stone doesn't really work for you, I bet you mushroom would be something that you're drawn to. I think that flower goes up a lot here too, because again, we're talking about some softness, some femininity, just that, like that sweetness. But you'll notice, like, again, if nurtured for you feels like leather jackets and black combat boots, then you're, well, first of all, if you have that and you also have flower, I think that's super cool. I want to see your outfits really bad. But yeah, any of those real, like anything that leans a little bit softer, I think is going to show up for Cancer, the fourth house. And going through the essence, the style roots. Earth, I don't see Earth showing up as much here. I haven't talked, let's see. I do, in terms of colors, I do think that I tend to see like neutral leaning cooler. Sometimes bluer eyes is something I might mention, but that I really do look at the second and sixth house a lot more to really like say, oh, a physical trait might be showing up here. But maybe even like an attraction to blues, softer colors. I tend to see like soft or light to medium in terms of the color range, and then like medium to light fabrics as well, like not wanting to be too heavy and not wanting to be too light, because again, like the idea of like being wrapped in a safe hug, think about fabrics that elicit that kind of energy. And I'm writing down the style roots because I was like, I gotta make sure that I remember them all. I've got moon, flower, fire, stone, earth, mushroom, sun. Am I missing one? I feel like I'm missing one. You guys are probably all shouting it at me. I love that. I've probably already said it and I just don't remember. Moon, flower, fire, stone, earth, mushroom, sun. This is my life. Okay, let's keep moving on as I drop my phone on the floor. All right, so now we're going to go into the, yeah, I mentioned the colors. Let's move into, I said, ethereal can show up here too as a facial essence. I think romantic is really, really likely, but I also think that ethereal is a thing. But if you have ethereal, then I think that you have ingenue and gamine as well, because this is a more youthful area. You're going to probably have something a little bit youthful showing up to counterbalance that ethereal vibe. Okay, let's move into Virgo, into Leo, or the fifth house. This is when we start seeing like a lot more expression. I think that I think Aries can be intense, but they're still going to be a bit more subdued, I think. If you do have Aries and you have dramatic, again, like I said, I think that there's going to be a softening that occurs. When we get into Leo, we're going to start seeing a little bit more extroversion begin to happen. So with Leo, the homework assignment I always give is creativity. What is fun, what's joyful, what's creativity to you. And as you write all of those things down, I think like I said, you're going to see a pattern. You're going to start noticing, okay, playfulness for me is, being able to call up my friends and be able to hit up some different restaurant and go out spontaneously. And another person's version of play is going to be like, I'm going to go to, when I get home, I'm going to go in, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea, and I'm going to grab my favorite book and sit on the couch by myself and read, right? Like there's not a one size fits all here of what play means, right? And so being able to know your version is, I think, really important if Leo or the fifth house is one of your primary places. So again, you'll note it, like write down what are playful, creative, fun, write down smells, write down colors, write down environments, write down activities. What are the things that are in those categories that bring you that sense of joy, creativity, fun, playfulness? And I'm just gonna bet pretty hard that you're gonna start seeing things you would love to have in your style. In terms of essences, Gemini goes up. I think dramatic goes up. For some reason, I keep seeing natural show up as an essence here. Why? I don't know. So if you have Leo as one of your top 3 and you have natural, please let me know, because I'm not able to yet figure out why that's the case, but I definitely have been noticing it. But there is definitely, like, I still see youthful. So if you do have natural, I think that you'll have ingenue or Gemini. I do think that romantic pops up here again, where it's like, because Leos can have some level of sensuality that can show up in their how they present, because like they want to express, especially if your homework list has things that veer a little bit more sensual, just go ahead and check if romantic might be one of your essences, especially if natural is in the mix. Yeah, that would be interesting. And then what other essences? Again, if you do have dramatic, if you do have natural, I would not be surprised, or even ethereal, although I don't see that nearly as much for Leos. I do tend to see a tendency for one of the more youthful essences to be a part of the conversation. Gemini, ingenue, go way up. Yeah, and in terms of style roots, this is when I see sun style root pop up a bit more, which makes sense. But I also think, like, the sun, well, I'll get into it, but Aquarians, like, they almost always have the sun style root. And you would think that would be the case for Leos, but because hopefully I continue to keep debunking a bunch of the narrative around Leos are here to express, and that doesn't mean that they want the spotlight on them. And sun style root can have some of that, like, I want the spotlight on me. But sun style root can also be like, I want to be playful and experimental and express myself in these fun and interesting ways. And so that is why I see, like, the sun style root for Leos looks more playful, whereas the sun style root for Aquarians looks a lot more like, look at my quirky, like, unique kind of fun vibes, right? That's going to be how I see the sun sign, or the sun style root showing up differently for Leos versus potentially the other types. And then I do see flower, because again, I think I see flower for all of the more youthful ones. Like, flower just pops up quite a bit. And then fire can show up. Yeah, those are the ones I know. Moon sometimes. Again, if your creativity leans a bit more towards being rebellious, maybe moon. But I haven't seen that one as much unless you have Scorpio or Aries in your chart. Oh, it's mountain is the other style root. That's why I haven't thought of it, is because that doesn't show up until we get to the top of the chart. Okay. So that's hilarious. All right. In terms of colors, I start seeing definitely warmer here. I definitely see soft warm, though, with medium depth, maybe a little lighter. Yeah, soft and warm is what I see, with like maybe some hits of bright for Leo. Again, a lot of the times for colors, and again, help me figure out how colors work. Everybody, tell me what your situation is, what color season you land in. But I do tend to notice that Leos have like some kind of softness, whether it's in their essences or colors. There is like this warm but soft vibe. Okay, let's go to Virgo and the sixth house. This is where we're going to start seeing a little bit more maturity. We're back in an earth sign, which I 100% relate to both the earth style root and to natural. Delian, stop getting ahead of yourself. You got to talk about the homework assignment first. This is why we wrote down a formula. So the homework assignment for Virgos is to write down practical, write down, sometimes I say sweet, because I think that Virgos like some sweetness in their life. I think that Virgo, if you have Virgo as one of your top 3, I say this over and over and over again, that you are here to learn how to take all of that practical, nurturing energy and direct it towards yourself a lot. And I think that Virgos often want to experience some sweetness. And so sometimes I'll give that as a homework assignment for Virgos as well. Like, what do I feel like is sweet? What's sweet? What's practical? And again, go through scents, go through activities, environment, colors, all of the things that you associate with that sense of practicality. Again, maybe you're the kind of person who's like, yeah, if I don't have pockets that work, this outfit's not going to happen, right? And that's great. You may also be the kind of person who's like, you know what? I know that I need to dress in layers because I want to be prepared for different things. It's like a practical way you want to live. That's great. Now you know that. Now you understand that. Make sure you bring it into your style. So I tend to notice, and please tell me if one of your top 3 is Virgo, is stone a style root? Because I see that go way, way, way up. I see earth style root go way, way up. And I see flower style root here for sure. In terms of essences, I see natural, I see ingenue show up quite a bit. Those two together, in fact. I think that for something that's quite interesting, because Virgo in the 6th house does, how I read astrology, represent your body. I think that there is something just less vibe-like in how I can read a Virgo in a chart, and more like, yeah, this is probably what they have. They probably have ingenue, they probably have natural, they probably have flower style root, they probably have stone style root, and they probably have earth style root. But again, like, let me know. You have, like, it's just interesting because I think that if you have Virgo there and in the 6th house, it's related to your body and therefore your style. And so those things like get really important for how you can actually feel okay in your body. But yes, what's practical? Write those things down, because you're gonna see like what clothes you should never ever buy unless it's for a very short event, because it's practical to wear it for that short event. But if it's like, I've noticed, like if the collar is too tight, or if you're wearing bangles that are too loose, like those things aren't going to fly for you, because it just doesn't lend itself to that sense of like, I could go walk through a forest right now. In terms of colors, speaking of forest, I do see a tendency towards neutral. I was saying leaning cool, but now I don't think that. I think that it's cool, neutral, leaning warm. However, I think that because there's some sort of lightness or some sort of softness in the colors I associate with Virgo, that it's sometimes it has like this sense of being cool. But again, let me know. Let me know if you've got Virgo as one of your top 3 areas, if that makes sense. I also tend to see like hazel eyes or like multidimensional elements in the eyes of Virgos. I think that, again, those colors that you would associate with a maiden in a forest. I love, so this is my favorite way to describe Virgos, is the princess who grew up in the woods and then like is an elevated forest maiden. She still is wearing practical clothing, but there's like this nod to sweetness. And again, there's other things, like if you have a lot of Scorpio in your chart, that's going to be like a totally different, interesting vibe. Like versus if you have Libra, it's going to look more princessy as we consider it. Whereas if it's Scorpio, it's going to look a bit more like the dark princess, you know, like this is what I do when I read a chart as I figure out what kind of princess you are. Okay. Yeah, I think that medium to heavier clothes actually are like denser clothes, fabrics are desired here. Everybody who's got Virgo as one of their top 3 has to have practical shoes. I don't think that that's ever not been an option for somebody who's got Virgo as the top 3. And again, I think this is why stone tends to get associated with the Virgo. But again, it's like, maybe it's one of those things where it's like, it's so practical that it doesn't have to be one of your style roots, because your 3 style roots are just always going to have this level of practicality to them. So, okay. Yeah. Moving on. Oh, I should say that sometimes I see moon here as a style root. But if you have moon as one of your style roots and Virgo is one of your top 3s, it's not the moon of like the broody moon. It's more of like the witchy moon. Like it's, and by witchy, I mean like, oh man, I wish I could share like the picture in my head. I can edit this. Here's a picture of what I'm seeing here. I have so much more power than I think I do. Okay. But it's like just a sweet, a sweeter kind of witchy vibe. So, okay. Moving on to Libra and the 7th house. This is when I see classic essence show up the most. I keep skipping. Go to the homework assignment. The homework assignment for Libra is, this is when I start to notice, like, what are your values? I think it's really important. Like, that's something that's gonna be a primary for how a Libra wants to approach their style. What are your values? Write those down. What do you find beautiful? What would you fight for? What is it that you believe in, right? What is justice and fairness for you? And also, what is beautiful for you? Because again, if it's beautiful to you, that's probably also what you would be willing to fight for, to stand up for, to advocate for. And those are all very Libran things. So that's the homework assignment. Take all of those words, or whichever one popped out at you the most, and write down all of the things that you would associate with that. Like, I know some Librans where the first thing that they're going to write down that they'd advocate for is like children and innocence, and even like other people's inner child, right? That's a very Libran thing. That's the thing that they would advocate for. Whereas another Libran, the thing that they would advocate for is like artwork and artists being able to create. So again, it's not a one size fits all. It's what's your version? What are your values? What would you fight for? What do you find beautiful? And then you'll start seeing the patterns. And also think about that from the lens of, like, especially for what you find beautiful, smells, colors, You could lean into aesthetics, like what aesthetics like just pop at you and make you go, oh, that's so beautiful. Artwork, even people. What traits in people make like do you find beautiful? And I think you'll start seeing things that you can bring into your style. And then in terms of essences and vibes, classic, 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 classic. If you've got a lot of Libra, I think that you probably have classic, unless there's something else going on. So I'll share me. My moon is in the 7th house, which is Libra, but it's also in Scorpio. And it's not technically like I have Pluto in Scorpio as well, so it makes my Scorpio pretty intense, extra. And I also have quite a bit in Cancer. And I also have my Aries situation. And so I often feel like, and other people have said that it seems like I have classic essence. And I think that I do, but I think it's technically my 4th essence. Again, one day I'll do an actual test and have somebody who's a professional analyze my features, and then share it all with you. We'll see how wrong or right I was. But while I'm really drawn to classic essence in my, and I'll talk about this too, style roots, mushroom is a big one for Libra. It has to, like, I think that I have enough either dramatic, something more intense in my face, which I associate with Scorpio, which we'll get to in a second. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Or, and again, I have that Aries, which I associate with like some intensity. And then all of this romantic probably from my Cancer. I fought it for a long time. I know I've been listening to you all. I think that I have it. And I think while I do have one of my predominant situations is in the 7th house, it's overruled, I think, by my dramatic and my romantic and my natural, maybe. So there you have it. That's my current setup. But I have been leaning that maybe I have classic, dramatic, and romantic as my top 3. Comments are welcome. Analyze away. Been trying to figure it out for 6+ years. And this is also going to showcase how, like, for me, one of the reasons it was really nice for me to look at my chart is that I also have 4 main areas that are going on in my chart, which makes, I think if you've had a reading with me, you know that you are one of the people who has 4 areas. And it's like often really tricky to find that third essence or style root or word for yourself, because there's like 2 that are duking it out for 3rd place. So, but yes, for Libra, absolutely, I see classic go way up, or you have 2 essences that are on opposite sides that end up creating a look of moderation. I do tend to see a sense of elevated or royal-like energy that shows up if you have a lot of Libra. Like you may be told that you look like a noble person, a lady or a lord, kind of like that's the vibe you give. We're going to start seeing more maturity show up. We're getting into the more mature placements. I do think that sometimes ingenue shows up for Librans, but only if it's balanced by something that's more mature. I don't think that if you have Libra as one of your top 3, then you have something more mature going on in your chart as well. That, if you have ingenue and you have Libra, there you also will have something else that's more mature that kind of like makes you seem like you should be listened to. I will say that I do know somebody who is a Libra who has ingenue as one of their top ones, and they looked like they were 15 until they were 35. And now they're a little older and they just look perpetually 35. I do think that there's an ageless, a timelessness that can happen for Librans, but sometimes depending on how old they actually are, like there's a time frame that it occurs. I had this, I actually looked much older than I was for a long time, and now I think that I look like a little younger than I actually am. We'll see. Now I'm scared that I said that. Okay. What else? I do see flower show up here. Again, anything that you associate with like royalty or princess vibes, I think shows up for Librans. But mushroom and flower are the two that I see the most for Libra. If you do have fire, it's going to be like a very laid back version of fire, a more subdued. But again, I'm just hearing if you have fire and you have Libra as one of your top 3, then you probably just also have mushroom. It's a reserved version of fire. Okay. Colors, I see neutral. I see neutral all the way here. And lighter. Neutral, maybe a little lighter. And yeah. Okay. Let me know, because again, we're trying to crack the color code. And let's move on to the 8th house in Scorpio. I love it when I get a chart that has a lot of Scorpio energy. I'm like, we know this one. So if you have Scorpio or the 8th house as one of your top 3, the need for intensity, power, sensuality, maybe even like seduction goes like, those are the homework assignment words. Again, whichever one popped out at you most. In depth, meaningful, there is moody, could be like one of those things for you, right? And again, write down colors, write down scents, write down images, anything. Go do a Pinterest board. You probably already have, of all of the things that you associate with those words for you. What is mysterious? What is powerful? What is sensual? What is alluring, dark, deep? All of those sorts of things are going to be very Scorpio heavy. And the homework for you if that's one of your top 3. And then in terms of essences, dramatic goes way up. Romantic is also here. We're in a water sign. I also, dramatic, romantic, those are, sometimes I see ethereal, but again, it's less here. But sometimes I do see it. I just think that if it's ethereal, there is something else that's like more, that there's going to be something, whether it's your color season that's darker or deeper, something that just brings out this level of intensity in your appearance. Like if you have Scorpio, you can wear black, even if it's not technically in your color season. You're like, why can I get away with this? It's because there's something about your energy that allows for it. Yeah. And then in terms of style roots, moon, I think this is the first, I mentioned moon for Virgo. And I think sometimes Aries can have moon too. But like, moon, if you've got Scorpio, the chances that you have moon just seem like really high. And if you don't have moon, I think that you probably have fire. And there's a possibility you have both. I do think sometimes mountain can come up here. Again, we're getting into some of those, we're now getting into the top of the chart, or the more mature signs. And these are going to be the mountain, more mountain leaning type of signs. So I do, because Scorpios do care about power. I do see that, but the ones I notice for Scorpio: moon, fire, mountain. Those would be the three in that order. And then for colors, again, intense, medium to deep, a lot less softness here. Did I say, I think I said did I say essences? Romantic, dramatic, sometimes ethereal. I did say that. And I do, again, think about like dark waters. All of the, like if you took a picture and you were like dark water scene and you notice the colors that tend to be there, those are going to be colors that might work really well for a Scorpio, if that's one of your top three, or at least elements you could bring into your style. But again, let me know. We're cracking the code for color. Moving on to the 9th house and Sagittarius. We're going to see the homework assignment I give everybody who's got a lot of Sagittarius in their chart is freedom, exploration, expansion. All of those things are going to be really important. And I was saying this with Gemini, but out of all of the signs, Gemini and Sagittarians, you need to not realize that the style systems out there are here to support you and not trap you. If you start to feel trapped in a style system, here's your permission slip. Literally nuance it, change it, modify it so that it supports you in your exploration and your freedom. And yes, so again, think of smells, think of colors, think of fabrics that make you feel freedom, exploration, expansion. Because again, for you, it could be, for me, I feel free when I have a massive library of books. Freedom could be I have plans next Saturday to go to this new cool restaurant. Freedom could be I'm in a safe, stable relationship with a person I love. Whatever freedom is for you, write that down. And notice, again, the patterns. And if you need some help with the patterns, you can join the Facebook group where this is the kind of stuff that we talk about. And what else do I tell Sagittarians? If you're here to find your truth, your philosophy of life. And I think that it's really helpful for Sagittarius, again, if it's one of your top three, to know what your philosophy is for style. What is it that you want from your style? What is your code? Because then within the code, you can go anywhere as long as you're following this code. It's almost like it's your magic wand that will help you get wherever you want to go with your style, but it's your North Star kind of thing that guides you to freedom. If that makes sense. Let me know. If that didn't make sense, you can leave me a comment. Be like, Delian, please, for the love of God, explain this more. Okay, essences and vibes. We're in a fire sign. However, I tend to notice natural shows up here. Why? I don't know. Again, same thing for Leo. I notice that Leos and Sagittarians, natural essence shows up. Maybe it's because natural can have kind of this feisty energy. I do tend to notice for essences, sometimes I see ethereal here. And I think it's because there's this freedom quality that ethereal vibes can have. And so therefore it can show up in your features. I do think that if you have Sagittarius, natural seems really likely. I do tend to notice that dramatic can show up because we're in a more mature sign. But those are the two that I think I've seen the most. If you have Sagittarius as one of your top three. Yeah. And then in terms of style roots, I think that for Sagittarians, it really is anything that makes you feel free. And this is what, like, if the flower style root makes you feel free, that's awesome. That's great. I do tend to notice not wanting to wear anything that's restrictive or too flowy, but leaning towards a little bit of the flowier side for clothing, just because there's like this sense of like movement that I think Sagittarians like to experience. I do notice for style roots, though, earth is often one. I think stone can be one, but I would think it's like a cozier earth, because sometimes I think Sagittarians do really well with like the dark academia or like the professor vibes. Either that or bohemian styles. Like those are the two aesthetics that I notice the most. If you have Sagittarius as one of your top three, is being an influence, not necessarily something like, no, I have a bohemian aesthetic. No, it's an influence. But yeah, stone and earth are the two that I see the most that show up here. But still, if being edgy and rebellious makes you feel free, chances are moon is one of your top three. Didn't mean to make that rhyme. Okay. Let's move on to, colors. Warm. I see warm here. Neutral, warm, but certainly like a bit deeper. And again, this is why color is hard, because you probably don't have all of your planets in Sagittarius. There's a conversation happening here. So like, let's just say that you have Sagittarius, and then let's say that you have your rising is in Taurus, and then your moon is in Pisces. Those are like, and those are your top three. The color, like what I would do is I would like add these colors together that I'm sharing and see when you throw them all together where you might land. If so, that I'm going to do that for myself and see what happens there. But essentially with Sagittarians, I notice like something warmer or something deeper, something a little bit more, and maybe even it's like neutral, but think like a fire in a fireplace at night, like dusk, like golden hour. Golden hour is Sagittarius coloring. Okay, I feel better now. That's what I think. And again, unless there's something else in your chart, like that's an influence that I would say is a part of your color. And then let's move on into Capricorn, or the 10th house. Homework assignment. Power, success, achievement, duty. Sometimes I put an asterisk next to that though. But definitely, like sometimes I say boss babe, especially if you've got a younger situation in your planets too for the boss babe part. But definitely those are, whichever one of those popped out at you the most. Write down the colors, the fabrics, the environments, the artwork, anything, absolutely anything that makes you feel like you are living in that word. So let's just use powerful. For me, powerful feels like wearing darker colors, wearing stiffer clothing, wearing black eyeliner. It could be power feels like having my cup of coffee first thing in the morning, or having a routine, or, write down whatever it is that makes you feel powerful. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else but you, because powerful could also mean walking through a field of flowers. It could. And if it does, please let me know, because that would be interesting. So powerful, capable, successful, whichever one of those words pop out at you, write down that list, start seeing the patterns. Those are going to be elements you can bring into your style that would work really, really well. For essences, I do notice natural, we're in an earth sign. Dramatic, I think, goes way up. I do think sometimes ethereal here. sometimes. Again, like if it, like, let's say this is a Capricorn and also in a water sign, that's when I would start seeing, or if it was a water sign house with Capricorn, vice versa, that's when I would start seeing maybe a story around ethereal. And then, yeah, those are the ones: dramatic, natural, sometimes ethereal, depending on what else is going on there with that room. And then for style roots, mountain, moon, sometimes earth. Again, I think that there's a kind of like capability that earth style root shows. But like I said, and also sun. I do see sun style roots show up here sometimes, because sometimes that's what makes people feel powerful, is to be high contrasting, to be wearing bright, powerful, bold kind of outfits. So ask yourself what makes you feel powerful, and notice which style roots you would associate with your list. But again, I don't think, yeah, I have done a reading where Capricorn wasn't one of the top 3 and that mountain wasn't one of their style roots. And then colors, I think we do see more contrast here, but certainly, essentially any color that you would associate with professionalism. I think neutrals we would see, but like darker, deeper, but without being over the top. I think that Capricorns do like some moderation, which is interesting now that I've said the sun style root. But I think that if you have the sun style root and you have Capricorn, I would be interested to know if it wasn't your third versus your first, because it's almost like the power shows up as a pop of color with maybe some other moderation going on in your outfits. So, but let me know. I'd love to hear. Some sturdiness, I think, shows up in textures. And I think we start seeing a desire to have like clean cut silhouettes, which I haven't talked about for all of them, but yeah. Those are the ones I notice, is the mountain, earth, moon. But again, I could see any of these being associated with power. I could see mushroom being associated with power, old money aesthetic for sure. So again, notice your list, notice which style roots end up matching what feels powerful, successful, like you've achieved, like you're capable. Those are going to be things important to you. And that would be how I would go about finding your style roots. All right. On to Aquarius, or the 11th house. So for Aquarius, the homework is always unique, different, interesting, quirky. What are things that line up for you that match that? Like I've been saying, notice scents, colors, textures, any routines, anything that makes that you associate with those things, and pick out the one that popped out at you the most. Unique, quirky, different, interesting, intriguing, any of that works. Inventive. And write down all of the things that you associate with that. It could be bright contrasting colors. It could be certain artwork. I love the idea of creating Pinterest boards too, because this is a visual medium. Might as well utilize going and finding visual pictures that you associate with these words. And so that's the homework. Essences and vibes. Interesting. I tend to notice, so ethereal goes up here, because again, quirky, different, interesting. We're in a more mature sign. I do see Gemini show up here quite a bit. And I wonder if it's because Gemini has like that quirky sort of look to them. I do sometimes see dramatic. But there's more so than an essence, I see the vibe of being like mischief. There's always mischief in somebody who's got one of their top three with Aquarius. But I am thinking of several people who I know have their top three is Aquarius, where they have Gemini or they have ingenue and ethereal in their blend. So it gives like this quirky, interesting look to it. Okay. And then in terms of style roots, sun. I don't know if I know an Aquarius that doesn't, one of the top three for Aquarius that doesn't have the sun style root. So if you're one of them, please let me know. I see flower a lot. And I think that maybe it's because flowers are unique and different and interesting. And like there's such a variety of them, but there's something, or they're bright and colorful. But I think everybody I know in my life who has Aquarius as one of their top three has flower as one of their style roots for sure. It tends to be a bold, fun, like playful flower way that they express it. So that's interesting. And then, yeah, those are the two I see the most is sun and flower. I think you could see moon because I think Aquarian's like a rebellious streak. But I think that if it's moon, it's not going to be as broody. It's going to be more like playful moon. Maybe even like goth. Like anything that's just like interesting. An interesting moody. And then in terms of colors, bright, contrast, interesting. Those are all going like... I'm going through them in my head. I do tend to see lighter coloring for Aquarius. Like there's just something light and bright. I like, and that there's usually like their eyes are bright. There's something in their eyes. It's like the twinkle is there. And so sometimes I'm like going through, it's like, I wonder if there's like just this bright quality to Aquarius eyes. I like it. And then Pisces, 12th house. If you've got a lot of Pisces, or Pisces is one of your top three, I think that the likelihood that you have romantic or ethereal goes way up. Way, 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 way up. And I think that if you don't have ethereal, you likely have romantic, or you have Gemini or something that's just like, ooh, where did they come from? Something interesting, something different, because Pisces is going to be like in this world, but not of it. So that's the energy that can come from somebody who's got or has Pisces. I'm thinking of people I know with Pisces as one of their top three. Yeah. I think they all have ethereal in their essence blend. And they definitely have a draw towards having something like wanting to be a bit fantastical. I'm skipping the homework again. Fantasy. Anything you associate with your fantasy world, write that down. All of that's going to be really important. Anything that makes you feel like you're in a dream. So like fantasy, dream. Yeah, those are the two I think I give. If I've given you something else, if you've had a reading for me and I gave you a different word, please let me know. But those are the two that I think I generally give. Sometimes idealism I will throw in there because Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, can be about like ideals and dreams, and that version of a dream is your ideals. So whichever word popped out at you the most, write down everything you associate with that, or go make a Pinterest board. If you do make a Pinterest board, I want to see it. Send it to me. I would love that. And essentially you want to bring in a fantasy, some way to bring in that fantasy into your style. Whether that, and you'll notice in the pictures, you'll notice in the words how you might do that. Maybe Maybe the moon makes you feel like that. Well, that's great. The moon is silver or white, cream, or you could think about shimmery eyeshadow. You could think about like, what are other, like that, a chiffon or silk type of material. These are like, this is how we make the jump from understanding the astrological energy of your blueprint, you as the main character of you, and how you can bring that into your style. This is how it becomes your personal style, right? So again, fantasy, dreams, maybe ideals, write down all of the things you associate with that, or create a Pinterest board and start noticing how you can bring those things into your outfits. And then in terms of essences, definitely ethereal. Sometimes I see classic, but I think if you have classic, it's because you also have something else that's like it's going to be a unique combination, is whatever Pisces, whatever your three essences are, it's almost like it's either creating an other, like a soft angelic sort of look, which is why sometimes I see ingenue here, but it's like an angel or something has landed from another world among us. So that could be Gemini and dramatic mixed together. That could be ingenue and dramatic mixed together. Something that creates paradox in your essences is what I notice for Pisces. But I do think ethereal goes way up if you have Pisces as your third, as one of your three. Style roots, I do see moon. I see flower a lot. I see mushroom show up here. But again, and sometimes fire, but if it's fire, it's going to be like a flowy, soft, very sensual version. That's sensual, it's going to be a more modest version, or something like sweeter is what I'm going for. Like fire can show up as like intense and sultry, but fire can also show up as like sweeter and lighter and like more of like a candle light fire versus like a torch, like there's versions of fire. And so that would be how I would describe it. But Pisces, again, is a water sign. I do think that romantic can show up in your features here, and that style root likely will have some sort of need to be like, I am living in this, I'm representing this fantasy. And maybe it's princess, and so therefore you lean towards mushroom or flower, and maybe it's maybe your fantasy is more like the assassin queen, and so therefore you wear moon and mountain. Like this is how I think you can discover through astrology what your personal style is. Because all I'm doing, this is the secret. All I'm doing is I'm looking at your chart and I'm noticing what your top 3, maybe 4 are, and saying, okay, this is the energy that is the biggest energy in your of you as the main character of you. And based on that, these are the things to explore and to understand about yourself. And that's how we get really good personal style, is that we start bringing those things into the story of our style and what we want to experience and what we want to express. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about Kibbe. And if I do look at what your Kibbe type might be, again, I put a big asterisk next to this. But because I associate the 2nd house and the 6th house, and sometimes the 1st house, with your body, those are the places I'm going to look to see what's going on there. And I've only had a couple people ask me to really look at their chart to see what their Kibbe body might be. And so far, it's been accurate. And I don't go look at pictures of you. In fact, I prefer it if when we have a style reading, I don't know anything about how you look. And so, that's because I really do I want to have this be true, not my bias. So it's been accurate so far, the way I've been able to read it. But I do tend to look at like squares, oppositions, or just whatever could be influencing it. Like I'll look at your sixth house and I'll be like, okay, if you don't have any planets in the sixth house, which is, that can be the case all the time. I could be like, okay, the ruler of the sixth house is Chiron. Where's Chiron in your chart? And I do some dissecting, and I also let my intuition guide me when I'm doing a reading a lot. So sometimes I'll get hit with things. I don't have another way to explain it. It's like I'll get a download of a picture. I will get a sense of like, a lot of times I'll be like, I can't believe I have to say this, because there's the Delian part of me that's like, you sound crazy. And then there's the other part of me, it's like, but you have to trust it. That's something that can happen when I'm doing a reading. So that's what I would suggest if you wanted to go and really see if you could clarify what your Kibbe is. I would look at second house, sixth house, and first house, and maybe do some sleuthing about what's going on there. If you don't have any planets in either of those three, which I think happens, I think that's when you might have a really hard time finding your Kibbe type. So that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you for watching this. I'm blown away. I am so thankful and amazed that you're here, and I can't wait for you to see the other videos and the next videos. And if you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will, I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.